News and Talk WAOK, the voice of the community. Currently, it is Sunday morning, 10:28 in the Rising, and we have a special treat for you all. So, as we know, it is currently election season that is coming up, and we have a government campaign that is currently going. We kind of let you all know that we were going to be having this person on the line, and we have them currently live now as we speak. So, can we give a warm welcome for none other than State Representative Ruwa Romman and candidate for the Georgia governor. Great morning. How you doing this morning?
Good morning. Morning. Thank you all so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for taking the time. And we are aware that you actually just got off of a current run. Would you mind sharing a little bit about that to the listeners?
Yeah, I just ran the NC 10 miler, which is part of what's called the Triple Peach series, where you do the 10K in July. Yeah, it's awesome. Peachtree Road Race, this 10 miler, and then a half on Thanksgiving.
Wow, that is amazing. I always love to be healthy and athletic. So let's get right into it. So for the listeners who may not be familiar, could you just give a brief background of who you are? Then we can dive into the campaign.
Sure. So I'm currently a state representative representing West Gwinnett. So if you live in Berkeley Lake, parts of Duluth, parts of Norcross, and parts of Peachtree Corners, I'm actually your state representative. I've also been an organizer in the state for over 10 years and work in the private and public sector on strategy work.
Love that, love that. So I guess that pretty much brings me to the first question of what got you interested in wanting to, what got you fired up to want to run for governor? Is there like one thing that happened that made you want to do it, or is it just a multitude of things?
It was a multitude of things for sure. I think right now we are in such an urgent moment, and now is a time for fighters and not folders. But also in a state like ours, we really need to build a movement that spans the entire state to be able to win. I've always believed that we can change our state one door, one conversation, one person at a time. Since my first time I've worked on a campaign and volunteered was the Michelle Nunn Jason Carter campaign. And I fell in love from the first door knock. And it was that idea of a movement, that organizing, that we have actually seen the results of for our state. And it's time for us to feel it on a state level. And so we want to, for me, it's about what are we providing voters? What benchmark are we setting? And so for us, it's raise the minimum wage, invest in small businesses, reopen hospitals, take homes back from corporations, and feed hungry kids. And it's that sort of very specific lines in the sand that we can actually work towards and have goals and not just various platitudes.
Absolutely, and it's wild to think about folks not having a place to actually go when they're sick, because we've been hearing about the hospitals closing in Georgia. What's your game plan to reopen those hospitals and make sure families can actually get the care they need?
A lot of folks have heard about expanding Medicaid. This is literally a bill that could be less than a page long that is being held up that both Republicans and Democrats want, but unfortunately the current governor does not. So that's sort of a low-hanging fruit. But I also think we need to get a little bit more creative. Our state has one of the best bond ratings, and what we've seen other states do is we've seen them sell those bonds and then turn around and hire experts in the state, which we now have a lot of because the federal government keeps firing them, and we can build out these centers and research areas on addiction recovery, on cancer, and it could create its own tax revenue. And from there, rebuild some of those hospitals and reopen them and sort of create this sort of new healthcare ecosystem in our state that we all can benefit from.
Absolutely, and that kind of brings me to this idea of kids going to school hungry, and that just hits hard. Even me, just being a young man myself and experience what I experienced. What is your plan to make sure no kid in Georgia goes without a meal? And have you met any families on the campaign trail whose stories really stuck with you?
Absolutely. So I do want to give a shout out to Representative Amani Barnes here, who we were both elected in the same year, and this became her big passion project. The first year as a freshman, she was able to get $6 million in the budget. This was 2023 for $6 million for free breakfast and lunch. Our governor line item vetoed it. And at the time, we didn't know why. And they kept saying, oh, it's because of conservative leadership. Not even 4 months later, he turned around and spent $10 million to buy Israeli bonds. It was one of those moments where I kind of realized, wow, our priorities are completely topsy-turvy, and they don't make any sense. It is completely upside down. And so for a lot of us, yeah, I mean, these are things we hear about on the campaign trail about how kids are falling behind. I've talked to teachers who will say, we know this kid is really hungry. We know that's why they're acting out. And we know that's why they're struggling. In fact, research shows that if a kid is hungry, it can sometimes take up to 2 days for them to be able to learn again because they're still recovering from that hunger.
Wow, exactly. And, a lot of us young folks, we out here working hard, and we are constantly, even sometimes having to work 2 jobs and 3 jobs just to be able to make ends meet. And we still out here struggling with bills. So What are some things that how are you going to push for better wages and helping small businesses, for example, like coffee shops or boutiques and things of that nature?
Exactly. So right now in Georgia, on our books, we haven't even talked about the minimum wage since 1997, right? We haven't even had a bill that's come up for discussion or even a vote. And again, this is sort of a bipartisan thing. We know some people really want to raise the minimum wage. And um, at the same time, we also know that small businesses are struggling. And so I firmly believe that if you work a full-time job, you should afford to live. It is a very basic belief system. And we also know that our system currently benefits large corporations instead of small businesses. So what if we were able to adjust our tax code so that some of those benefits actually go to small businesses instead? And what we do is we set the minimum wage, but then we say, look, for small businesses, we'll give you a much longer runway to ease some of that burden. And then obviously if you're a corporation, no, you got to raise your wages. You don't get the benefit from us. And then a bunch of shareholders who don't even live in the state get the benefit off of our work, but they don't know our names, they don't know our stories. And like you said, we're working so much harder and getting so much less. And you add on the rising utility rates, which, by the way, shout out, Public Service Commission races are happening right now, and we can actually remove two of the people that keep raising our utility bills, our electric bills. But like you said, everything is going up in cost, whether it's a small business or not. I mentioned Medicaid earlier, by the way. It is truly one of the best investments we can make for small businesses because it would reduce healthcare costs for those small business owners. And so these are actually not only morally good policies, they are actually economically good policies.
Exactly, exactly. And for those who's getting fired up from even hearing this live and hearing the different things you're doing, what are some ways that people can be able to support you, whether that may be donating or that may be volunteering their time to be able to volunteer for you? What is the best ways that they can be able to do that?
I appreciate that question so much, and I meant it when I said we're trying to build a movement. Our goal is to recruit literally thousands of volunteers. So if you go to ruwaforgeorgia.com, so that's RUWAFORGEORGIA.com, you'll see a volunteer link. You can sign up to volunteer. There's also going to be donation buttons. But our goal is we don't want to take PAC money. We don't want to take sort of the APAC type corporate PAC money, those kinds of special interests. We want this to be people-led, people-centered. And so that way, if we do get elected, we're actually governing together and not just through those same folks who keep selling us out. And so we invite everyone to come along. In fact, our first canvas is going to be next weekend on the 25th. We're going to start knocking those doors.
Wow, Ms. Romman, I thank you so much for the time. Thank you for the energy, the authenticity. It really, I felt this through the phone. I felt this through the microphone. This was phenomenal. So thank you for the time. Absolutely, and we're looking forward to having you back. So once again, thank you so much. Thank you for what you're doing for the community, and looking forward to being able to support in any way that we can.
Have a wonderful rest of y'all's weekend.
You as well. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you heard that loud and clear. That was none other than State Representative Ruwa Romman. And if you want to be able to support, donate, or even just volunteer your time, you can head over to that website. And even if you may not have things to donate, even just volunteering can help in so many different ways. So I hope you guys really enjoyed that, and you could be able to hear this replay if you didn't get a chance to make it on the website News and Talk WAOK. And of course, we'll be right back on the other side. You're tuned in to News and Talk WAOK, the most informative station in the land.